little handsome piggy wigs.
Oink, oink.
For the big bad, very bad, big bad wolf, they didn't give 3 figs. Number 1 was very gay, and he built his house with hay. With the hay, hay toot, he blew on his flute, and he played around all day. Number 2 was fond of jigs, and so he built his house of twigs. Hi diddle diddle, he played on his fiddle as he danced with the lady pigs. Number 3 said nix on tricks, I will build my house with bricks. He had no chance to sing and dance, 'cause work and play don't mix. Ha 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 ha, two little pigs just winked and laughed. Ha ha, who's afraid of the big bad wolf? The big bad wolf, the big bad wolf. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Tra la 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 la. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? The big bad wolf, the big bad wolf. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Tra la 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 la. Three blind mice, see how they run, see how they run. They all ran after the farmer's wife. She cut off their tails with a carving knife. Did ever you see such a thing in your life as 3 blind mice? 3 blind mice, 3 blind mice, see how they run, see how they run. They all ran after the farmer's wife. She cut off their tails with a carving knife. Did ever you see such a thing in your life as 3 blind mice? Three blind mice, see how they run, see how they run. They all ran after the farmer's wife. She cut off their tails with a carving knife. Did ever you see such a thing in your life as 3 blind mice? Three blind mice. Oh!
All right, team, how's it going?
Woot woot!
We're just about to start our show.
I'm so excited.
Boop, boop. There we go.
I'm so excited.
Let's take a look at these waveforms. Oh, wait, I have to... Look at this.
I can't look at
There's
it.
this weird update, which means I have to make sure that leaves before I can put this over. There we go. Hey there. Hi. There she is. Look at this woman who's so excited. So before we talk about the really exciting and amazing things, we squeal with delight. I want to give a quick shout out. I want to do something.
What are we doing?
Hold on.
I've been shouting for like days.
I know. So first we're gonna. So you always start when you have good news, bad news. You always start with the bad, right? And then you careen into the good. So there we go. How's it going?
I don't know
I'm
what
fixing
he's
things.
talking about.
Yes,
I don't know what he's talking about. I'm wearing my Buffalo sweatshirt again. You guys are going to think this is my uniform for the podcast because I'm always wearing the same clothes. But
well, I chose my uniform, which was, if you've been watching our stuff, which is my OG Eugene O'Neill Puppet Theater hoodie. It's the first merch they ever put out. It's the Eugene O'Neill Theater. It's been replicated many times since, but yeah, I feel like mine was the first. I was there the first time they sold T-shirts and stuff. Anyway, so you ready to start this podcast?
yes.
Are you ready to start this? If you're out there, give us a shout out.
Yeah, let us
in
know.
chat.
Say hello.
Yeah, because we like hearing from you, and it's nice. Podcasters have to deal with this all the time, but it's nice not being in a void, right? It's not like, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, it's nice to hear from people.
Yes.
All right, so here we go. 3, 2, 1, boom. All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are the Puppet Parent Podcast.
We're puppeteers, we're parents, and we have a podcast. My name is Z.
My name is Chad.
And we own the company Wonderspark Puppets.
That's
and
right.
We've been performing puppets together as a married couple for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And we have 2 kids, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, both boys. Mm-hmm. And we
performed together. You were my puppet mentor for like solid 3 years. Solid 3. And then we had kids.
Yes.
And then I started performing with somebody else who took over your role for the first 3 months of your maternity leave, and then that turned into 5 years.
Well, no, I came back for a bit after leave. After we had our 7-year-old.
That's true.
But
I
then
take that
once
back.
we had 2 kids, then
Yes.
I was like, peace out, man.
Yeah. So for the past 5 years, not counting the summer because there was no work, I have been performing puppet shows with somebody else. And in the middle of that, I decided, you know what? I can do this alone. I'm going to go solo on a couple of these shows that on one show that we usually did double.
Yeah.
On one show, our show Princess Petunia, where there needs to be multiple, like at least more than 2 characters up at once. Yeah, like that show will always be 2 people. Always, always, always.
Yeah, that makes it special.
Yeah, exactly. So before we get into...
I like to give a recap
Yes.
for anybody who's tuning in for the first time. First-time listeners, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us. We have been doing these podcasts since the week of March 17th. We usually live in New York City and have been there for almost 15 years now. And we live in Astoria, Queens. And then when the pandemic hit, we stayed in our apartment with our 2 kids, our very tiny 2-bedroom apartment, for 2.5 months.
80 days.
Yeah. And then on June 1st, we decided, you know what, let's spend the summer in Western New York at Chad's parents' house. They said yes. And so we moved out here and have been living with my in-laws, his parents, since June 1st. September came around, we decided to stay because it just seemed like the right choice for lots of reasons. And here we are, November, still here. And I don't know when we're coming back, but we're excited to be here in this space right now. And I should also tell you that we were lucky enough to get a residency from Springville Center for the Arts. And we have had this ongoing residency where we've been able to broadcast from this space. We don't have our kids here running and telling us that they, couldn't flush the toilet or who knows what else. And it's just nice. No dog barking every single time there's somebody in the driveway.
Yes.
So you guys can enjoy your podcast and we can enjoy, a moment with all of you once a week. So we record these podcasts every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you're welcome to say hello in the chat. Yay, just like Marika did. Hello, Marika. We have so many good things to celebrate this week.
So, before we talk about
what do you have to say?
The donkey in the room, the blue donkey in the room.
The blue donkey?
So I was just reading the most recent, if you guys are not yet either members of P of A, the Puppeteers of America, or Unuma USA, which is the international wing of the international organization, you should, because they're basically magazine companies, and we get quarterly magazines. And look at this beautiful issue of the Puppet Journal, which is
Puppetry Journal.
Puppetry Journal, excuse me, which is the P of A's, the Puppeteers of America's amazing magazine with all these incredible
full color pages.
Wow, and it's worth the very low price of admission. By the way, if you are a member of either of those organizations, whichever is cheaper at this point, you can apply to get $500. There's a grant for puppeteers that's still ongoing.
Yeah.
That if you are a member of either of those organizations, that's the only thing you have to prove. If you lost work during the pandemic and you are a member, shout out to all the other Unumas in the world. I'm a board member of Unuma USA, full disclosure. You can get $500, 500 United States dollars.
To help you get through the pandemic.
Yes.
It's direct relief fund for puppeteers. And so you should think about that if you are in need. And if you're not in need and want to donate to that, there have been so many companies who have benefited from those funds.
Exactly. So I say this because I care about you guys, because I care about all the puppeteers in America. And there are so many of our friends who, like us, scrambled and changed and figured out and hustled so we could survive. Not everybody made it through, as in some puppeteers did actually die. Rest in peace, Bernice.
Well, that's the only one I can think of offhand.
And others, and family and friends, like everybody has had somebody in their lives.
Everyone has been affected in different ways.
Some puppet companies have not made it through, as in they have decided to retire. There's a great article called Retired, Shelter from the Storm by Steve Abrams, who's the editor. And I just want to give a shout out because it feels like, before we talk about the exciting things that are happening in our country right now, I just want to say these are the companies that have just decided, you know what, because of the lack of work, because it's not going to be safe for audiences to go see theaters or want to come see live theater for a long time. Peace out, we're done. We're thinking about retiring anyway, a lot of them.
It's amazing because to me, I think to myself, I don't know if we'll ever retire, but I guess there is a point where you realize that it's time. But we're only 40 and 41. We're young. So we're in the point of our lives where we're old enough to know that we are young. I'm sure I'll watch this back someday, maybe not, maybe I'll never watch it, and be like, oh, what you didn't know.
We're super young and super not sick. So the Denver Puppet Theater, gone after 28 years.
Wow, I didn't realize that they had closed shop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And let's see. I mean, we knew because they told us in advance, but Jamie and Bonnie are dear friends.
From Crabgrass Puppet Theater. In Vermont, yeah.
They had already kind of, in the fall of 2019, they had announced that Jamie was finally stopping. Bonnie had stopped a few years prior. Mm-hmm. I think Life on the Road or something. Or, maybe she's just ready for another facet or another path in life. Mm-hmm. 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 She started making a lot more things. Mm-hmm. She started needle felting and wet needle felting, or wet felting. Wet felting, which is its own thing. It's extreme.
You need space for it. That's why I haven't done it. You really need a good space, and I don't have that in my life. I took
one workshop, and at the beginning of the workshop, my dear friend who was teaching the workshop said, you'll either be really excited to continue at the end of this or decide this is not for you. And I was definitely, this is not for me. At the end, I was like, the thing we were supposed to make did not turn out well. It was really hard and complicated and takes a lot of tools, which costs a lot of money. Everything about it, I was just like, I'm just not that kind of person.
That's how I feel about wet felting, but I do not feel that way about regular needle felting.
Right.
Yeah.
You poke while you listen to a podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Stimulate your brain.
Crabgrass Puppet Theater. You guys were awesome.
Yeah.
They were like one of the
inspiration for us married couple doing it. You
Yeah.
know, and performing at different places. We would go and see their shows and like take notes of like, oh, how did they do that? Oh, that's a good idea. Oh, that's how they. I remember we were inspired by the way that they ended their shows to say, all right, boys and girls, we're so glad that you enjoyed the show. Now make sure that you listen to your adults that you came with to know what to do next, you know, or something like that. They always had a really great finisher that then led it off to the teachers, because they were performing when we saw them at Queen's Theater in Corona Park.
Yes.
And it's a very, very big venue. So lots of schools and school buses and stuff. And
hundreds and hundreds of kids.
And we both looked at each other after they said that and we're like, oh, we're going to do that.
Yeah, write that down. A little mental note for later.
I'm sure it's even clear in the book, you know, the journal from back then of us writing things down.
It was clear that they had performed for a billion schools and they were pros, and their words, the words that they say were just so down, and their shows were super strong. Jamie's awesome performer, same with Bonnie, great voices. And they did, and this is back in the era where you could do folk tales from different cultures, I think. It was still in greater American society still acceptable for white puppeteers to pull from like different countries. Right now, it's kind of like it's kind of iffy. It's kind of like it's this interesting topic that we're all talking about, because the power of puppetry is that you can perform anything, right? Like you can perform somebody who's a different gender, different race, you know, like a monster, a carrot, doesn't matter. How does that affect the general perception, especially in voice acting, that a white actor cannot portray a character of color anymore? Like, and so many, I think like leading up to the pandemic, so many celebrities or more well-known voice actors were openly quitting from their long-time voice acting jobs. The Simpsons being the most, being high-profile one, where they were volunteering. They'd stopped fighting what everybody was telling them for a long time and just said, like, you know what, all right, I'm just stepping down from this role. Do we want those roles to continue, I think, is what the fans are debating to this day.
So we wanted to give a nod to people who had retired.
Some people that I didn't even know, like Bob Conrad.
He was a long-time PFA member and, you know, very active.
It's a really old picture of him, which is, you know, like, you can tell some of these are like glamour shots from the 80s. Bob Flanagan, who was a designer and puppet builder, and like did all kinds of things on Broadway, like Beowulf and and Emperor Jones and the Banished Children of Eve. It's all here in this wonderful article. But Conrad Bishop and Elizabeth Fuller, no more Independent Eye.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that they had retired.
Yep. They said after 46
years. They have some amazing
years.
books, and I actually got to see them perform in someone's apartment in the Upper West Side. They did a little show, and I felt so lucky to get to see them. It was so reminiscent of what I thought, and I might be totally off because I never got to see him actually perform, but the founder of the Living Theater, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name, but he was very eccentric and interesting, and like just I've heard just amazing to watch on stage. If you know where you would have seen him is in Poltergeist 2.
Spooky Boogaloo.
Or is it Poltergeist? No, Poltergeist 2. He's the guy who comes up to the house and is like, "You're all gonna die in there."
Oh wow!
And he's actually dying of cancer while he's playing that role. So that's all. But he loved acting, and I can't think of his name. If anybody remembers his name.
So the creepy old guy from.
But anyway,
Poltergeist 2.
He was a brilliant actor, and he did a lot of really innovative, like, boundary challenging things, and I always thought of Conrad Bishop and Elizabeth as being like kind of like puppetry's version of that in a sense. Now I have to remember his name, but anyway, it doesn't. What was really important is Conrad and Elizabeth, and you should read their books because they have written books about their time starting the puppet theater and on the road and everything, and it's amazing. Really amazing life.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Susan Vanderwee. Vanderwee.
Vanderwee.
Born in Jersey, but she's but like all these people who have retired from puppetry, like always, they're always up to something else. Says she's managing a private retreat called the Sassy Goose.
Oh.
But the biggest thing to me was Puppets to Go. Gone. No more Bob and Elise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bob Nathanson and Elise Handelman, who I feel like they took us out to dinner early on when we first went, when we first came to New York City and started performing together. It was almost like an heir apparent kind of a deal. Eventually, when we started doing like the same libraries where they used to perform in New York City, Bob was just a New York City, he was not a standby, but like you could always see his shows in schools and libraries and stuff in the greater New York metropolitan area. What's his name?
Julian Beck.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, as I was hitting the go, it came to me, but then I didn't trust myself. So, thanks for letting me check that.
But yeah, Bob Nathanson doing very silly hand puppet shows, Jewish puppeteers, who I'm sure had some Jewish shows that, like I would just like to see, like it's my dream to someday have like a Jewish puppetry festival, just putting out there into the world, because I want to see everybody else's Jewish shows, because you only perform them in temples or in synagogues or at private parties, or like the 3-year-old haircutting ceremony and stuff like that. So I want to see each other's work specifically for that audience. It's so special.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
And there are some rabbis who do puppetry, and so I would love to talk with them and have some symposiums about like how puppetry can be such a positive tool when teaching the Torah and the Talmud, and speaking with kids, but then also like giving the adults who are the teachers of these things a new way to relive the texts. I think it's just so cool. Yeah. So Jewish puppeteers of the world, come at us. Come on, let's collaborate. Let's talk about our work, right? And the differences between like Israeli Jews putting on like serious theater and American Jews putting on stuff that feels needed in Jewish communities here is like, it's a huge world of difference, right? And then actually there's a great feature story, not to play this anymore, about what's her name? Eilert Golan. Oh.
Who is an Israeli puppeteer. Anyway,
Wow.
Just want to give a quick shout out to those who have not died but have retired, because this is like a good like, okay, like it's not coming back, puppet theater, for a while, so it feels like, okay, this is our time to bow out.
Oh, yeah. Bob's book, Diary of a Doll Wiggler, is super fun.
Oh.
He's a really funny author, and you're really going to enjoy reading that. And then, may I recommend where to buy it, where the artists get more of the monies? So I would go to the Independent Eye Theater's website directly and see where they're recommending that you buy their books from, because Conrad and Elizabeth's books are. I have one of them. I think it's the most recent one that they published, just about their early career, how they met, and then how they decided to be making theater. And then I think that you'll see like what I mean about the Julian. If you're a theater nerd a little bit and you know who Julian Beck is, then that might like evoke a little bit more of like an understanding of like the kind of work that they were doing. Like just the fact that I got to see them in New York City, but not in a theater. I saw them in somebody's apartment because they just believed in telling stories and telling them wherever they got a chance to tell them. And it was just so cool. So anyway, I'm like happy, sad for them, because I was excited to see more of their stuff, but they're in California. So the one time that they were in New York City, I was like, I'm coming.
But it's like, that's the deal. I mean, I feel like we always felt that way about puppet theater, that like, hey, remember this one puppeteer who was big in the 90s? Oh yeah, they're performing a show. We have to see it, because...
Was that me saying that to you?
Yes, always dragging me to some hole in the wall, being like, we got to do it, because because with theater, especially, like actors and puppeteers and you never know when somebody's going to surprise retire, or just like, hey, money wasn't good, I'm just going to teach for 20 years. or something like that. Like people always talk about, oh yeah, back in the heyday. You know, you never know when the good days are gone until they're gone. So you got to make sure and see everything as much as you can.
I agree with Ryobina in the chat that Code Canada Puppets, Lumen Codes Press, where he prints puppetry books and then also distributes them, is an excellent resource for really high quality puppetry books. If you are building a marionette, I immediately recommend the Marionette Source Book. That book, and I believe that's written by Lumen. But it's a great starter for just really basic ideas of like joints and stuff. There's so many good books. We should put a link in the chat. Ryobina, can you put a link in the chat so that people will?
Here, I got it.
No,
I got
Chad's
it.
going to do it. Okay, great.
So what's it?
Code Canada Puppets Press, something like that.
Okay.
So
Code Canada Puppets.
Charlemagne Press. Yes, that's it. That's
Press.
it.
There
That's
you
it.
go.
Charlemagne
Thank you.
Press. Thank you. Code Canada Puppets was the name of his puppetry company that he had with his wife. Yes. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
His wife Arlen and him worked together for a long time, and then Arlen passed away, and now there's the Arlen Award, and my chair rolled away. I don't know what to say.
I would say one of my favorite stories in that Diary of a Dolly Wiggler by Bob Nathanson, which is funny because it's kind of like a memoir, but also kind of like a joke book of like his best moments. Which I feel like every puppeteer has these moments now that I've experienced 10 years of them. One of his best things is he's doing a school show, and it's in a very echoey gymnasium or cafeteria, one of the two, or a gymatorium. And he knows it's going to be echoey, so any noise that the audience makes is going to be amplified. And so he tells the principal, hey, when you turn off the lights for this show, can you fade it down, please? Because if you just turn it off, these kids are going to freak. They're gonna freak out. So he's like, no, don't worry about it. I got it. He tells them like a couple times. He's like, awesome, got it. And then the principal has a microphone, introduces him, and now Bob Nathanson in the Frog Prince, ladies and gentlemen.
Frog, yeah.
Thank you. And then click, turns off the lights, and he said that the noise that the audience made was so loud it hurt his ears. And it rattled him, and he said the only thing he could compare it to was like an airliner like a jet taking off, because it was so extremely loud. And I think about that all the time when we do like the intro to our show, and that is why no matter what, I always have a pre-show speech, and it's me, not somebody else.
Yes.
And I'm out there, and we count, and the audience counts down from 10 to 1. And during that time, if we can fade, I always tell the stage people, if you could fade the lights from, when we're counting down from 10 to 1, that would be nice. If we're in a theater, otherwise, when we get to 1, I tell them in advance. Now I'm like, when we get to 1, I'm going to turn off the lights, and we're going to start the show. So they're prepped. As a parent, prepping the kids for things is so important. But I'm always just like, maybe it's the puppeteer's credo of like, you do everything yourself, but we're in these different situations all the time where it's just easier because we have the experience to just be like, I'm just going to handle it. And that's okay.
Can I tell you that, so the intro to our own show thing, you know who that is from?
Yes, but go ahead and tell everyone.
Paul Zaloom.
Really?
Paul Zaloom, yes.
Oh, I thought it was somebody else.
No. The Counting Down is from Anna Sobel and her company, Talking Hands Theater, which I worked at for a year before she left to go on a silent retreat in another country, and then we started our own puppet theater. But prior to that, I had worked with Paul Zaloom at the summer of 2003, which was a very influential summer, and I developed this piece that was like a dark comedy piece about going to the dentist, and he imparted a lot of things during that week. It was at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Conference, the puppetry conference at the National Puppetry Conference at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center. And when I was working with Paul, he had a lot of really great things that I just took and put in my pocket. And one of those things was introduce yourself. And I was like, yes, I will. And so, and especially for that show about going to the dentist, I always self-introduced the show because people would be like, well, we're going to introduce you. And I'll be like, that's nice, but I'm still going to introduce myself.
Yeah.
Because then you set the tone. And then people will also know, because that show is a comedy, but it's sometimes tricky to know, like, when is it okay to laugh? Is it okay to laugh? Is this supposed to be funny? I don't know. I don't want to be the only person laughing.
Right.
So the way that I set the tone of it always let people know it's okay to laugh because this is supposed to be funny. Whereas
That's smart. But we did the text for our actual intro. Here, I'm going to give you the actual intro to any of our shows. You
But
ready?
I just want to.
Yes, go
I
ahead,
just
go
want to say that. So then that carried over to our children's shows, where I always felt like, again, you're setting the tone for the room, and you're giving expectations for the kids of like what you expect to have happen and what they expect to have happen. They want to have a really fun time. You do too, but there's certain things that have to happen. And then the countdown, I always thought was brilliant from Anna Sobel, and she actually gave me a whole little monologue once. I don't know how to say it, but like she told me her
spiel.
her spiel about counting and how countdowns are, so you can count up or you can count down, but number increase and number decrease is like really important, and it can be important for lots of different things. And then I started thinking a lot about that, and like I still count down sometimes to do things I don't want to do, like get out of bed and stuff, you know.
wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, in my brain.
Wow.
I do that.
See, she went to India on a Sobel and came back and
This
imparted
was
all
before.
this knowledge. Oh,
This
wow.
was before. She was already doing amazing stuff with playing tabla, and you know, like she'd already been in India. Then she went away again.
Yeah,
so.
no, I'm saying she was a Fulbright
Yes,
specialist.
she was.
And went over in like 2003.
Yeah.
Something like that, so early on.
So what were you going to say about
So,
our intro speech?
Our intro speech.
We have all these people to tag now that we're saying all these nice things about.
All these people helped us. You know, when people talk about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and self-made man and all that, it's all fibs. It's all a myth. It's all a lie. Everybody helps each other, and the cobblestones that you step on your path to where you are now or where you're going to be is laid out by other people, the people who have helped you on the way. You know, nobody can make it on themselves. If people like all these ultra rich billionaires, it's like, how did you start? Well, I'm a self-made man that worked really hard, and I had a $100 million loan from my dad, and you know, like things like that. So we want to thank everybody who helped us along the way. And I just want to preface this by saying, in the puppeteer community, it is wholeheartedly encouraged, because everyone is kind of regional, to take inspiration from other people's bits.
Well,
I
yeah,
will say-
or like how they did mechanisms, or
Yes.
like how they made things, like certain effects work. Yeah, stuff like that.
So it's not okay to steal somebody's bit outright, right? There's this unofficial system of asking, but everyone is so open with sharing, generally speaking, that it is totally fine to be like, wow, that sneezing gag was great. I'm just going to lift that and, you know, use that in like one tiny part of my show.
Well,
Nobody makes like
it's not like so specific. It's more or less like sneezing. Who would have thought sneezing? And then
Yes.
you remember that. And then when you're trying to think of something, it's like, you know what? I saw somebody do something really funny with sneezing. Can we try sneezing? Right? Like that's kind of how it comes about more so.
Well, and it's kind of like there's no original ideas kind of a thing where like, all right, well, you took something great from this one part of this one show and then remixed it into yours, right? But where did that person get it? And where did the person they got it from get theirs? And like it goes back into physical comedy or like opera. Like there's so many different places where like inspiration from previous artists from, you know, years or decades or hundreds of years ago have just continued to pervade. And there's the old axiom, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So
Sure.
there's all the things that kids will find funny in our little corner of the business.
Yeah.
So everybody uses the same kind of gags, right?
yeah.
So here is our intro speech
Okay.
that I wholeheartedly lifted from one performance of what's that puppet theater in Brooklyn? The puppet the marionette company.
Puppet Works?
Yeah, Puppet Works. Thank you.
So we were inspired by Puppet Works and Anna Sobel's Talking Hands Theater and probably Crabgrass Puppet Theater.
It was specifically from one performance that I saw of Puppet Works, and it was the fastest intro they'd ever done because we've seen many shows there, and sometimes their intro can last 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, sometimes they do have very long intros.
Yes, because one time the first person we ever took to take on your roles, Jamie, I said, "Oh, just do your spiel from the marionette theater that you could still worked at," and she's like, "Got it." And I was thinking, "Oh yeah, the really awesome, super concise one that they did in 1 minute flat," and she did the 10-minute version.
Oh, I do remember that. Jamie Moore.
Yeah, Jamie Moore. She did the 10-minute version, but it was a really hard venue. Our speaker could not reach everyone. There's 300 kids. Everything about it was terrible. So anyway,
challenging.
It took a great intro speech. One person did one time, and we made it our own and refined it over the years. And here it is. You ready?
I'm ready.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Chad. I'm a puppeteer. I do puppet shows. Who here has seen a puppet show before? Raise your hand. You've seen a puppet show before. Excellent. So a lot of you guys have, the moms and dads, I see. So you probably remember how to be a good audience, right? There's 2 rules we have to follow for being a good audience member. Rule number 1 is you have to stay seated at all times. And on Zoom, now that we're in streaming world, say, give me a thumbs up if you can do that. Awesome. Great job. All right. Rule number 2 for being a great audience member is during the show, you have to be what? And if you're listening, I'm putting my finger over my mouth right now. That's right, quiet so you can, and I'm cupping my ears right now, podcast listeners. Yes, so you can hear everything that's happening on stage. But feel free to laugh, clap, and have a good time. This is a very, very silly show, so get ready to laugh a lot. And that bit is straight from the Puppet Showplace Theater. Thank you so much, Roxy.
And then I have a line that I don't even know if you still have it.
Nope.
You cut it
out.
I always, but I haven't performed that as much as you have, but I always say, we just ask that when you're done laughing, you reel it in and get quiet again so that you and your neighbors can hear everything that's happening on stage.
Yeah, I cut that fat a couple years ago because you want your intro to be short and sweet, right? What do we want kids to do? Stay seated and be quiet. And we know that we want them to interact with us, right?
Yeah.
If we have control over the audience, like if they're focused, then I don't have to worry about them continuing to talk. And hopefully the adults with them will be like, shh, be quiet.
That's true.
So after that, then I talk a little bit about the show, and then we go straight into a countdown from 10 all the way down to 1. I give myself 10 seconds.
And while he's counting, he's walking back behind the stage, or I'm walking sometimes. I still perform sometimes. And as the kids get older, I intend to perform more again. So 10 seconds with the audience counting down to walk around the booth, go into the booth, get your music queued up, put your hand into a puppet, and then get ready to turn on the lights. Or even just hold, as soon as we hit to 1, turn on the lights in the show, put your hand in the puppet, press play, and it's go time. And now you're on autopilot. And I can't wait to be in front of a live crowd again, because interacting with a puppet, with the audience there, knowing how much to do, or when to stop interacting with them and move on and stuff is, I don't want to say it's an art, but it's definitely a lot of fun. You miss it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I keep the audience on Zoom muted, because you cannot control them. I think I talked about this a couple episodes ago.
You can't control their environment either. Like maybe some adults are having a conversation that doesn't seem so loud to you, like who's in the room with them, but over the computer it actually is quite loud. So things like that. Yeah,
and if you don't have control over Zoom or over StreamYard or something, whoever's making the most noise. It's like anarchy. Whoever has the most noise, they get spotlighted, right? Unless you were spotlighted completely. So you don't want any of that. So we just keep everybody muted. But that's the intro to our show. It's like, it's short, it's sweet, it sets the tone, right? Because I'm up there, like doing things with my hands and like pantoing a little bit. And you've told me over the years that I was a little too much like the Wiggles. So I've tried to be a little bit more real.
It was a little too much children's theater for me, but it got to that point, so we had to reel it back a little bit.
Yeah,
But-
I was trying different things. I used to slick my hair back too.
Yeah, well,
We
all change a little.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, speaking of change and
right.
setting the tone, guess what happened, you guys? You guys! Biden won! Biden won! I cannot tell you how much I miss being in New York City during all of this. I mean, I just missed. I was so appreciative of every single person who posted a video of them leaning out their window or going to the streets and just showing us what was happening in New York City, because I so badly wanted to be there with everyone. When Barack Obama won the first time, we were in Harlem at our friend Brett's house, and we were watching The Daily Show, and Jon Stewart told us, he said, Barack Obama will be the next president. And I was like, yes! And I put my shoes on. Everybody's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to the streets. And I'm like running down the 4th floor walk up, and Chad and all of our friends are
Everyone's like
running after us, like, what are you doing? And every single person I saw, I'm like, high five, and we did it. And then we went down to Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard at the square there, and there was an amazing gathering, and we all gathered. And so when Joe Biden, it was officially declared that he had won by all the major news outlets, oh my God, it was just like, I screamed. I screamed in the little house in Western New York where we've been staying. Chad's parents are like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, he won. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. He won! He won! And I just went outside and started screaming because I just needed to do it, and I was crying. And I mean, it's just, you don't know. I mean, it felt like the end of the war. And then there's still a lot to do, and COVID is still here, and there's, oh my God, he's still going to be here until January 20th, and please just put a muzzle on that guy. But, we can do it. We did it. And he won the popular vote by more than 4 million votes. And then I got to watch his acceptance speech last night with our boys, and I'm just so riled up.
Am I one of the boys?
Yes, you are. And it was just so good. And to see Kamala Harris, the first female woman of color vice president in the House. What is up? Yes! I just can't stop being excited about it. I'll go maybe 30 minutes and forget for a second, and then I'll remember and feel so happy all over again. So I think I needed it. I know a lot of people.
We all needed it.
We all needed it, right? We all needed to be reminded that our democracy is still works, that we as a nation can say no to this, that we are saying no to all of this.
Thank goodness, because it was for 4 years we watched an administration with a cabinet of people who wanted to dismantle those positions, were in those positions, and it was us versus the world, and kids in cages, and every possible horrible thing was happening, and it felt like a civil war was imminent, and things were just going to get worse and worse and worse, and all you could hear is this one person's voice, right, for 4 years, because it was all the media would ever cover. It was awful, and it was terrible, and I'm thinking man, Americans look terrible right now. This guy is making us look like idiots, right? Because a lot of people put him in, and a lot of people still voted for him, which is
they did
just as bad.
But I will tell you, we are living in Trump country right now, because we're in Western New York in a very small farm town, and we would see signs every single day on multiple houses: Trump, Trump, Trump flags, huge Trump signs. Today, they were almost all gone. Almost all gone. And I just also just felt this weight lifted of feeling again hey, they took down the sign. So for them, that means it's over. too.
That's right.
And that's also a great sign because that means that they're ready to move on. Okay, good. And the other thing that I was mentioning to you that I find extremely heartening is that there was a significant group of people in our population who are Republicans, voted for Biden, and then voted Republican down the rest of the ticket. And I want to say a big thank you to those people. Because you could have easily voted Republican all the way down. But instead, you thought about it and you decided, I'm fiscally conservative. These are the ways that I believe, but I don't believe in tyranny, and I don't believe in people who are mean and unkind and horrible. I don't want that person representing me, but I do believe in these value sets. So I'm going to vote this way for Senate and the House and my local government. But for president, I'm going to go with Joe Biden. And I just want to say a big thank you to those people.
Thank you to everybody.
But thank you to everybody for voted. But I feel like that is crossing a line that is very hard for a lot of people to even consider that the other side might have something to say. And I think that's a very big deal.
Well, I feel like this president made it easier to see it as kind of black and white, right? Like all the projecting they did, all the evil things and terrible things that they did for the last 4 years. Made it like the easiest vote I've ever done, because for 4 years I was just like, I just can't wait to cast my vote again, so we can get this guy out of here.
I put it in our Google Calendar 4 years ago. I did
4 years ago, yeah, and what's kind of like righteous or feels good on the inside, because 4 years ago we felt so deflated, and I know that a lot of people that voted Republican for president feel that same way. The disappointment, the feeling deflated, feeling like, how is it possible that the world, the future that I want is not going to happen? But I just feel like, for me personally, I feel like thank goodness we have some consistency. We had 8 years under an Obama presidency, an aberration that we will all remember and talk about as the dark times where our government, it was anarchy and they tried to dismantle everything and ruin everything. And 250, probably by the end of this year, 1,000 Americans died because of their incompetence. But then we went right back after one term to where we needed to be, like where we were before. I think people are going to be talking until January about the election and breaking down demographics and how this happened, and everything. And the lawsuits will eventually be dismissed or settled, or et cetera, et cetera. But I'm eager to start any kind of positive work so that less Americans die. 1,000 Americans died yesterday, and it's just getting worse. And it's crazy that a large segment of our population doesn't see the correlation between the decisions that are being made at the very top and everybody suffering and dying.
I know.
So if you're out there and you did not vote Democrat for president, I get it, but please think twice in the future about how even just like the attitude of the president or somebody at the top of like a management or a boss matters and affects everybody below them.
Well, I think also it's very hard if the only news source that you get is highly conservative news, because that is it's like two totally different planets. If you only listen to that, you would think that it's a huge conspiracy theory. Everything was rigged, and the election is a fraud. I mean, luckily, Fox News is not reporting that, but they're actually reporting that Biden won, and I'm really thankful to them for being in this moment, for being journalists of integrity in this moment and saying the right thing and the truth. And the truth is that he won, fair and square. And
the one thing that you can't break in this country is the mass media. Even with the revolution of social media and how mass media has kind of shifted into online, where the battle still rages and the conspiracy theories still rage on, and people are still memeing and talking about how it's unfair, and et cetera, et cetera. The traditional mass medias of newspapers and TV and those 24-hour live TV channels have decided collectively, actually, he won. and there's no conspiracy, and there's no signs of electoral fraud, and you can't mess with that. Like for good or for bad, mass media has decided actually this guy. Which is crazy because for 4
math.
years, that's all for your. But
It's math.
mass media can decide one way or another, and they decided to go.
It, and they decided to angle it on the angle of truth. And by the way, Uncle Tom, I did not want to miss this game. They were doing so good when we left, so I'm glad to hear that they're still doing good because they were kicking butt.
Those Bills were killing it. I hope that they maintain their lead because they were looking really good in that first half.
I know. We should if they make it to the playoffs, will they still be playing at Sunday at 1 p.m.?
Maybe we could have like an iPad right here where we're playing the Bills game.
On silence. I don't know if that's fair for our listenership, but anyway, we're in Bills country, so it's important. The Bills are important out here, and being out here, it's like cultural. You got to be part of it. Mm-hmm. But it was just an amazing moment. And I'm excited to support the Biden-Harris ticket, not just because we voted for them, but just going forward. And I have my, personally sights set on Georgia and the 2 Senate seats. And, I'm hoping for a little bit of a miracle there that because they're going to have a runoff election for those 2 seats. And who knows? Who knows? But
Georgia pulled through. I mean, it was extremely close. But a lot of people worked hard for 4 years, Stacey Abrams included.
Stacey Abrams was ahead of that team. She has been doing it for more than 4 years, over 10 years. She's been working tirelessly on behalf of the people. And big thank you to her and all of the people who helped to get out the vote and to convince people that now is the time, that you have to register to vote and then you have to show up to vote or mail in to vote. And I think that the concept of mailing in a ballot suddenly became so much more like it's pervaded the consciousness of our country to the point where it's like, oh, voting can be easy and it's something that I should do.
Yeah. Well, the easier you make something, the more people are going to do it, right? We always talk about in design and website design, you got to get your audience to where you want them to go with as few clicks as possible. If they have to search for something, if they have to drive somewhere in terms of voting or wait in a long line, it seems kind of hard. People that are going to be on the fence are going to be like, nah. So if you can just fill out a form and mail it in like it ain't no thing, then of course so many more people are gonna vote out. Like if you could do it on the internet, and they never will, even more people would do it.
And a huge thank you to the younger generation who voted in this election. I didn't know that that's what they're called now.
No,
Zoomies?
Zoomers.
Really. Oh, Zoomers?
Zoomies is this is slang for when dogs run around really fast and men are really excited.
Funny. Anyway, I just feel like the young people, kids who just turned 18, who are in their 20s, who are in their 30s, they are the ones who also showed up. So a big thank you to them and to everybody who voted and realized how important this moment in history was. So now we just have to get through till January 20th. Stay safe because the pandemic continues to be worse and worse. So many people are sick and, people continue to die. And there's that crazy thing with the minks in Denmark. You guys haven't heard of it? Google that because that is like, what?
Well, if you want to be scared, but it's okay.
Don't worry, I'll be scared for everyone.
Don't worry about it.
Clearly, never knew how I'd react in pandemic, but I am like searching for all the fear. Where is the fear? Here it is. Oh, I'm reading it.
Maybe you're addicted. Maybe after 4 years of being in an abusive relationship with our own country, maybe that's going to have long-lasting effects and long-lasting trauma on us. Like, how are we going to react, good or bad, to anybody who reacts in like the same kind of way? Like, are we going to punch the fascists down immediately in the future? Like, come on, like, are we all going to have like gritty inside of us in our hearts? or is it going to be like, are we just going to be shell-shocked for a while, those of us that survive? If you can hear me right now, if you are listening to us right now, you got to stay inside. You got to wear a mask, and you have to not party. And limits your contact with even family members, because even in Europe and like all over the world, it's so much worse than it was in the springtime, which is crazy. But that's the reality that we're in right now. So you gotta be vigilant. You gotta stay safe, because I think, like I say this every time I do a streaming workshop, is like, all these theaters and all these artists, like, you just have to survive. This is about survival right now. So if you can do everything possible to survive, that's all you got to do until we all get vaccinated, and then we can rebuild. But right now, it's like, if it's really hard for people, I feel like it's because maybe I'm an introvert or something, but like staying away from people ain't that bad. Maybe I'm just at the point in my life where I'm just like, wow, I can just hide out for a while and stream from like, a bedroom, cool. But if that's not you, if it's really hard for you and you really need people in your life, or, need to like, so all I'm saying is be safe, because you need to make it. You need to make it. Like, this is a marathon. We don't know where the finish line is, but you need to hang in there until the very end. Okay. Because I want to hang out with you, and I want to party with all my friends. I don't know if I've told you this, but like, I have a plan for all the people I'm going to visit. and I predict right now that the airlines that are hurting so bad right now, losing millions and billions of dollars, they're going to have the best year that they've ever had in their entire run. Like better than ever before. As soon as everybody gets vaccinated, everyone's going to fly everywhere. Tourism is going to be insane, and whoever's in charge is going to take credit for it, right? But like, I can't wait to travel. I can't wait to see all of our friends. I can't wait to perform in front of people, but you have to stay safe, because you don't want permanent lung damage. You don't want to die. You don't want your family to get sick. Anyway, rant over, stay safe.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So stay safe. It's been a good week. Biden won. And parenting stuff. We haven't really talked about parenting stuff at all, but just like a little side. So we're technically registered homeschoolers. Our kids go to a micro school in New York City that will eventually be an accredited private school. But for now, while they're still working on their accreditation, we are registered homeschoolers with that little school. I mean, you could almost think of it like a co-op, except that they have a real building and there's real teachers. They're just not like in the system. Anyway, all that is to say is that our kids are doing remote learning through a teacher that is works for that school, right? Our youngest, our 5-year-old, has some speech language stuff. He's had difficulties with his R's his whole life, and there are a lot of other adults who have trouble understanding him. We understand him just fine for the most part, but even I sometimes have a difficult time understanding him if he's talking too fast. And so my mother-in-law, who is a kindergarten teacher for most of her life, has said a few times to me now, he should really get some speech language if you're going to be staying out here for long enough, because he's in kindergarten. And if we can, help him now, it'll really help him later. So this last week, we were really working on trying to find somebody to give him some speech language lessons, a speech language therapist. I'll tell you, I thought that being registered as homeschooler would make it easier in some ways, because we didn't have to get an evaluation or jump through hoops or be recommended or anything. But actually, it made it that much harder because we weren't in the school system. Nobody could automatically offer us services, and it was very easy for a lot of people to say no. And then I found one person, and it feels like kismet. And she is retired, but she's only been retired for a couple of years, and she really loves speech language pathology. And she's gonna drive here from Orchard Park to give an evaluation to Finn on Wednesday, and I'm just so happy. And I'm really hopeful that it's a good match, because it felt like it was meant to be. So I'm putting it out there to the universe and to all of you. If you're fellow parents, I want, of course, you to know like what our journey has been. And both of our kids have different needs and stuff, and so this is just like another step of that, of like parenting is, well, if your kid has a need and then it's still not getting addressed after a certain amount of time, then you have to figure out like, okay, how do we address this need? Because we've been trying things at home. That hasn't worked. He's getting older. He hasn't grown out of it. Okay, so now we have to go to the next step. But going the next step sometimes is not easy, and you have to be an advocate, and it is tiring, man, and it's tough. But we found somebody, yay, and I'm really excited, and I'm excited to meet her, and she sounded like the perfect fit for our family and for what we're doing. So
we will let you know.
We will, and if I learn anything, from her, I'll share it, because I'm excited to learn more about how to teach kids the R sound.
R. Yeah. He can't. He's has a real trouble saying
Oh, actually, you know what she said to me on the phone is there's actually like 7 or 8 different ways to say R.
Yeah.
And so I thought, yeah, of course there are, but I haven't thought about it because I'm not a speech language person.
Yeah. We're super excited. We're happy about the results of the election. Back in New York City, AOC won. We all these cities around the country erupted. And we all watching videos of people banging their pots and screaming out their windows like we were thanking essential workers back in the day just feels like so natural and so right.
Senator Schumer immediately after called Biden and held the phone out his window. and I don't think, Biden even talked about it in his speech last night. He didn't expect it to be like that.
Right.
But we all needed it, man. We all needed some good news, and
I want our country to have allies again and not be friends with dictators or not have leaders that want to be dictators. It's like the little things. I feel like the bar was already low for America. Now it's like super low.
Well, I hope that this period of time will be written about in the history books as accurately as we lived it. That's what I also hope too, that it isn't 2 different versions of this history, because that's how it's been reported on, throughout.
Well, I will tell you the great thing about history, looking back, is that most sources in like historical sources are wicked biased for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Like if a king has a historian, right? They're only going to say good things about the king, right? And stuff like that. So historians actually kind of weigh the context between like what one source is saying and what was happening in the country to kind of figure out, like read in between the lines. But I'm feeling, because there's so much documentation about like, this is what this side is saying, this is what this side is saying, that it's going to be really easy for somebody 100 years from now to do a book report on this presidency that thankfully is terminating in a couple months.
I'll tell you, yesterday I was just listening to NPR and painting the deck. I was helping your parents paint the deck, and I couldn't hear it enough. Every 15, 20 minutes they had to break in and do like a station identification, and then also say like the news of the hour. They could tell me a million times, well, the next president-elect is Joe Biden with Kamala Harris as his running mate. They could say it again and again and again, and every single time I was like, yes! Yes!
Yeah, I'm looking forward to debating about progressive policies versus non-progressive policies, because right now we're in regressive policies, and all the stigma about thinking about progressive thinking or far left thinking has been so stigmatized and demonized that I feel like you can't even talk about things like, hey, let's pay less money and get free healthcare, guys. Like, it seems like a no-brainer, but it's been thrown under the bus for so long that it just feels like unless we have a complete blue wave, there's no way it's going to happen. And even then, who knows? So I'm looking forward to, I'm once again hopeful and excited about the future. I don't need specific things to be thinking about. Like for the past 4 years during the pandemic, I was like, okay, I'm a Fulbright specialist now, so I got something to look forward to, because you have to look forward to something during hard times, right? Looking forward to traveling, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm just like, wow, now the future is so bright and exciting. We can talk about we can debate about anything right now. So anyway, we're the Puppet Parent Podcast. Z, Chad. We're parents. We're puppeteers. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
Check out the archives over at puppetparentpodcast.com. We are on all kinds of streaming platforms,
Yes.
including Spotify and all kinds of MP3 apps and podcast apps. So watch out for us there. Or head over to puppetparentpodcast.com for the RSS feed or the MP3 dump if you just want to save that onto your device.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
All right. Goodbye.